Hello everyone, today we are going to be talking about logical fallacies and how to recognize them. So what is a logical fallacy exactly? A logical fallacy is a mistake in logical thinking. It's a mental trap. So when you hear the word fallacy, you can also think of the word false. It's a false way of thinking. It's not logical. We've been talking a lot about advertisements and how we're surrounded by them. And advertisers, while they oftentimes will try to use pathos, logos, ethos, they're also going to use logical fallacies a lot because they're not really concerned with being super logical most of the time as much as they are as selling their product. So logical fallacies are fair game in advertisements, and they make a good place for us to look. So when we're wanting to learn how to think and argue logically, a good way to do that is to learn first what's not logical. And that would just be those logical fallacies. So let's take a look at the first one. The first one is overgeneralization. This is when you draw too big of a conclusion without having a lot of facts. So for example, all kids are trouble. Timmy is a kid, therefore Timmy causes trouble. And poor Timmy might have never caused any trouble at all. So to fix this, you would try and use these qualifying words that make not such a big conclusion. So some kids cause trouble, and so Timmy might cause trouble also. Or a few kids sometimes cause trouble, but Timmy doesn't, right? So by adding those qualifiers on, you don't make such a big conclusion and you don't sound quite as crazy. The next one is circular reasoning. This is when you support your idea using the exact same language of your idea. So you're not really ever explaining anything at all. So the examples, education is important for kids, so they should get an education. Okay. Everybody likes ice cream because it's liked by all. Well, you haven't really explained anything, right? And these are the worst definitions when you have to look up a word. Belligerently means in a belligerent way. Well, if I didn't know what belligerent meant, I really haven't learned a whole lot. So this can be very frustrating, and it's not a good way to be logical. So to fix this, you would want to make sure that the support you're giving, the explanation, is not just you repeating yourself. And then if you are giving a definition, you never want to use the word you're defining in the definition if you can help it. All right. Number 3 is black and white thinking. And we've all been in an argument with somebody who has this type of thinking. It's either their way or no way. It's either you're either for it or you're against it. There's no gray area. Whereas in reality, the world doesn't work that way. So to fix this type of thinking, or to maybe remind others that their thinking is incorrect, is to look at the world as a more complicated place and to bring up those more complicated issues and alternatives into the conversation. If anything is ever presented as black and white, you should be on guard that maybe this is somebody using a logical fallacy and not being accurate. Number 4 is a red herring. And it's a type of fish. That's why you see that fish there. And it really is just anytime you throw something into the conversation as a distractor. Maybe as you're not wanting to have the conversation, you're not winning the argument, so you throw something in there that's not relevant. It's a distractor, and hopes to win or to at least get the conversation off. So here's a kind of a silly example from a kid. Mother says, "It's bedtime, Jane." And Jane says, "Mom, do you know that ants feed their babies?" Mother, don't know, dear. Or how do they feed their babies? Sorry. And she says, "Close your eyes now." Jane, "But Mama, do any ants cry when hungry?" Obviously, this child is trying to avoid going to sleep, right? They're trying to distract their mom with something totally irrelevant. Sometimes people do this in arguments too, or in when they're trying to persuade you. They want to distract you a little bit. So to fix this, stay focused on the topic and watch out for those who don't. If somebody's getting off topic, you need to try your best to get them back on topic or stop listening to them. All right, number 5 is called ad hominem, which is a Latin term, but it means basically to attack a man. So for those of you that speak Spanish, hominem is where we get our word hombre. Okay, and it's also where we get our word human. So it's you're attacking a person rather than their argument. So the example here, after Sally presents an eloquent and compelling case for more equitable taxation system, Sam asks the audience whether we should believe anything from a woman who isn't married, was once arrested, and smells a bit weird. So rather than attacking her argument on taxes, he attacks her person, her life, her personal life. Politicians do this a lot, but it is actually a logical fallacy, and you should not do it when you're debating. So fix this by keeping your argument on topic and not on the person. It's a cheap way to argue. All right, statistical fallacies and false authority. This is when people try to use ethos, but you have to really question if that ethos is real. So people use numbers that might skew the numbers, use incorrect numbers, or like we see in this advertisement here with Marilyn Monroe, they use some famous person who's supposedly credible, but we don't know that she actually uses that product, but we're supposed to believe her because she's famous, right? And so some of the other examples, I surveyed 100 people and they all agreed with me. But maybe those 100 people were all your friends, so of course they're going to agree with you. So you have to question the information. So to fix this, like I said, question the information and make sure there's no self-interest. Are they giving you information that's completely unbiased, or is it really just to help them out? Advertisements probably using information just to help themselves out because they want to make a buck. All right, faulty causal relationships, sometimes called post hoc. That's the Latin term for it. It's where you make a faulty conclusion, basically. So to excuse the action or belief by making it sound sensible. Of this, assume that anything that came before caused the event. So I stole the towel from the hotel. They expect people to take them. Or eating 5 energy bars and drinking 2 Cokes helps me get better grades. I did this and I got an A on my test. So just because you ate 5 energy bars probably didn't necessarily give you the A on the test. So this is like superstition, right? I stepped on a crack. I broke my mother's back. My mother's back got broken, so it must have been my fault. It's not accurate. It's not logical, so you have to watch out for that. So you fix this by examining the relationship. Did me stepping on a crack really break my mother's back? Probably not. And so look closely and make sure that things are actually related. All right. This is called misleading comparison. It's when you compare 2 things that really have no business being compared. So Jill looks good in red, but maybe Jill's a supermodel. So I'll buy red pants too. Well, that's probably not going to work out as well. Okay? Forcing students to read books is like herding cattle to the slaughter. Well, that's extreme. Students are not cattle. You gave him extra time on the test, so I should get extra time on the test. Well, not every student's the same, different needs. And of course, we've heard this one a lot lately. Donald Trump is Hitler. That's an extreme comparison that probably doesn't have enough evidence to support it. So you fix this by remembering that every person and situation is different, and we have to be careful about what we compare. All right, bandwagon. This one you may be more familiar with. It's the idea that because a lot of other people are doing something, you should too. So adults are smoking, so it's okay to do it. The American people do not for, that's not correct, but are not for blah, 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 blah. You hear politicians do this a lot, and it's just not accurate. Just because a bunch of people are doing something, of course, doesn't mean that it's automatically a good idea. So just make sure you're looking at those facts and not just on popularity. All right, and our last one today is straw man. This is when you try and make your opponent's argument sound weaker than it actually is. So you're making them like a straw man, you are making their argument seem weak. So look at this example. After Will said that we should put more money into health and education, Warren responded by saying that he was surprised that Will hates our country so much, and he wants to leave it defenseless by cutting military spending. All right, so this guy Will just made a simple comment about wanting to put more money in health and education, and this guy Warren comes and says, well, you know what, Will? If that's the case, you must hate our country because you don't want to put money into military spending. Well, that's not what Will said, but you are twisting his words to make it sound like he made a weak argument that he really didn't make. And it's not a good way to argue. If the audience is paying any attention, they'll realize this and think Warren is being a jerk and probably a bad debater. But if they're not paying attention, it can sometimes work. So we have to be careful and watch for it. So you fix this by staying focused on your opponent's actual argument. All right, so now we're going to practice a little bit. Does the logical fallacy match the advertisement that you see? So this advertisement uses black and white thinking. So this advertisement does not use black or white thinking. Rather, it's using false authority. So this doctor supposedly is saying that you should smoke Camels, but would all doctors actually recommend this? Definitely not today, right? And is this guy even a doctor? Where's the data to back this up? This seems a little extreme, but it's definitely not black and white thinking. All right, is this advertisement red herring? Is it a distractor? No, this is not red herring. Steve Jobs here is not trying to distract us, but rather he is making us, or trying to make us, want to buy something because everybody else is doing it. So that would be bandwagon. And not everyone else, but 120 million is a lot. So he is trying to convince us with that bandwagon. All right, this is a faulty causal relationship. True or false? This is a faulty causal relationship. So just because 1 and 2 are both numbers does not mean that 1 and 2 are the exact same thing. And so this logic is not appropriate. Is this black and white thinking? No, this is not black and white thinking. It is a logical fallacy, though, and it would be red herring. So we're talking about immigration, and all of a sudden you start talking about capitalism. It is a distractor, and it's not appropriate for the conversation. Okay, so that concludes our beginning talk on logical fallacies. Please bring any questions you have with you to class, and I will see you then. Thank you.